Hello, it's Amanda here.
Hi Amanda, it's Renee calling from Group Stepping Stones Triple P. How are you going today?
Very well, thank you, Renee.
That's good. Now you might remember this is the first of our 3 telephone sessions, and the aim of these sessions is really to tailor the program to the needs of you and your family. So we're going to be reviewing how you've gone with your home practice tasks and your goals, and then we can talk about any other parenting strategies that you might have questions or concerns about. How does that sound to you?
That sounds good.
Now, these sessions will usually run up to 30 minutes, but generally they'll be between 15 to 20 minutes in duration. And it's really helpful if you can have your Group Stepping Stones workbook with you when we have these telephone calls. Do you have that with you at the moment?
Yes, I do.
Great. Now, do you have any questions about how these sessions are going to work?
No, that sounds very clear.
All right, well, what I'd like you to do, Amanda, is if you can turn to session 6 in your Group Stepping Stones workbook.
Yep.
You'll see there's a section there where you can jot down what you'd like to talk about during these telephone calls. Can you see that there?
Yes, I can.
And did you have a chance to jot down what you'd like to talk to me about today?
Yes, I did. I wanted to talk about the planned activities routine for having visitors over, which I tried out during the week. It was an absolute disaster.
Okay.
But I also developed a routine for going shopping, but I haven't had a chance to try that out yet, so perhaps I'll talk about that next week.
Right, so I guess talking about the planned activities routine for having visitors then is what you'd like to focus on today.
Yes, that's right.
Was there anything else you want to talk about today?
No, I think that's probably enough for today.
Right, Amanda, well, before we go on, what I'd really like to do is review all the assessment information we've collected. You might remember that both yourself and Mark filled out a number of questionnaires at the beginning of the program, and Mark said in the last group session that he'd be happy for me to share that information with you today because unfortunately he couldn't join us for our telephone call. So I just wanted to check, is it okay with you if we go through all that assessment information before we talk about your planned activities routine today?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
All right. Now, you might remember, Amanda, the first questionnaire that you and Mark filled out was about Stevie's behaviour. Now, many children have behaviour problems to some extent, but both you and Mark rated Stephen as having more problems at the beginning of the program in terms of his behaviour relative to other children who have a disability. And your ratings also suggested you considered Stevie's behaviour to be more of a concern than what Mark did. Do you have any ideas why that might be?
Well, it could be that I spend a lot more time with Stevie, so often Stevie's in bed when Mark comes home in the evening.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly makes sense, doesn't it? If you're spending more time with him, you're potentially going to see him, playing up a little bit more than what Mark might. Now, from the ratings you and Mark gave Stephen, he seemed to have particular problems with disruptive behaviour and anxiety at the beginning of the program. Now, some of the disruptive behaviours you mentioned he had included things like temper tantrums, biting and breaking things. And some of the anxious behaviours you described him having included him getting upset when he's left alone or if he's separated from you. Does that sound like what he was like to you?
Oh yeah, that sounds like Stevie.
Yeah, okay. And I guess I'm wondering, Amanda, have you noticed any changes in his behaviour over the last few weeks since you started the program?
Well, I have noticed some changes. He does seem a little bit better behaved, but he does still get upset when he gets left alone.
Okay, well, I mean, that's really good that you've noticed some improvements. Now, you and Mark also filled out a questionnaire about your parenting styles, and your answers on that questionnaire suggested that at the beginning of the program, both you and Mark could be quite forceful with Stevie when you were trying to discipline him. So you both said you sometimes cursed at him or called him names. And Amanda, your answers also suggested that sometimes you tended to give in and let Stevie have his own way. Does that sound like how things were at the beginning?
Yes, I don't like to sort of admit it, but yes, I think things were very much like that.
Okay. Now, the questionnaires also told us that when you and Mark started the program, neither of you felt very confident in managing Stevie's behaviour in a variety of different situations. And you said here things like meal times and travelling in the car. You didn't feel very comfortable and confident in managing those. And you also said there were a lot of difficult child behaviours you're unsure of how to manage, like Stevie's tantrums and his whining. Does that sound right?
Yeah, look, I don't think we had any idea of what to do, really.
Yeah, no, it can be, quite difficult and understandable that you lack some confidence when you didn't know what strategies to put in place. Now, your answers also suggested you and Mark were arguing a lot more than other couples at the beginning of the program about parenting. Have you noticed any difference in how the two of you are handling Stevie's behaviour now?
Yeah, we do seem to be a lot calmer, and I think we're also both being a little bit more consistent in how we're managing Stevie.
That's really good to hear. And how do you think that's impacting on Stevie's behaviour?
Well, I think it might be the reason, or one of the reasons, why he's a little bit better behaved.
Yeah, I think you're right, Amanda. Now, in addition to fighting about parenting, you and Mark also indicated on the questionnaires that you weren't really happy in your overall couple relationship. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
And your answers on that depression, anxiety, stress scale also suggested you were feeling depressed and anxious at the beginning of the program, and Mark's answers indicated that he was stressed. Now, can you remember why you were feeling really depressed and anxious at the beginning of the program?
Look, I think I just felt very helpless and rather overwhelmed, and I just didn't seem to be able to do anything right. And I also felt very concerned and worried about Stevie's future.
Okay, and I'm wondering, Amanda, how are you feeling in yourself and in your relationship now that we're 5 weeks into the program?
Look, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm feeling a lot more positive about things.
Okay, I mean, that's good that you're feeling more positive and that things are looking up for you. Now, the other important piece of assessment you've been doing over the past few weeks is keeping track of Stevie's behaviour. How's that been going?
Yeah, pretty good actually.
Okay, and can you just remind me, what was the target behaviour that you were deciding to keep track of?
I've been monitoring Stevie's temper tantrums.
Okay, and which of the monitoring forms did you decide to use for that?
I've been using a tally sheet.
Right. And Amanda, can you just describe to me, what have you noticed in terms of how many tantrums Stevie's been having over the last few weeks?
Well, he was having about, at least 2 or 3 tantrums a day, but now it's probably only about 1 tantrum a day or 1 every 2 or 3 days.
Okay, well that's fantastic. Firstly, that you've been able to take the time to do that monitoring, and also that you have already noticed some improvement in his behaviour. And I'd really encourage you to keep going with that monitoring so we can see whether his behaviour continues to improve as you keep moving through the program. All right, Amanda, well, to sum up then, at the start of the program, both you and Mark were concerned about Stevie's temper tantrums and his anxiety. And relative to other kids who have a disability, Stevie's behaviour at the beginning of the program kind of fell at the moderate to severe range in terms of, the severity of his problem behaviours. The good news, however, is that you're already seeing some improvements in his behaviour, and from what you've told me, a couple of possible reasons for this is that you and Mark are being more calm and consistent in how you discipline him. And in addition to that, it sounds like you're feeling happier in yourself and also in your couple relationship with Mark. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think that's a pretty good summary actually.
Okay.